Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers uses of force, internal investigations, and Department of Justice investigations, and is brought to us by the Louisville Metro Police Department. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. On April 16, 2019, Officer Mark Batson of the Louisville Metro Police Department pulled over 64-year-old attorney Douglas Miller for allegedly driving 76 miles per hour in a 55-mile-per-hour zone in Louisville, Kentucky. Officer Batson did not immediately activate his body-worn camera, so the first part of the interaction was not recorded. However, the majority of the encounter was captured on Officer Batson's body camera.
Okay. I would never do that. Okay. Do you have your registration, your insurance? Yes. All right, sit tight for me. .86, I'll be out on sobriety checks. Do me a favor, go ahead and step on out for me. Yeah, if you want to. You lied to me. You lied to me. Do you have anything on you I need to know about? Drugs, guns, knives, the beer bottle under your seat? No, I don't have any. All right. Step on back here. We're going to do some quick field sobriety checks. Right back here. Stand right there for me. I didn't know if you meant...
I passed those tests.
Okay. Walk over to the front of my car. Just stand right there for me. You ever taken one of these before?
No, like I said, I've got one in my car.
Like this one?
No, it's the old outdoor sensor.
Yeah. This is the new and improved one. So just going to take a deep breath in. You're going to hold it for just a second.
Will you answer me? Did I pass those tests?
Well, if you're an attorney, you know it's not a pass-fail test. You have shown some clues of impairment. So.
How long have you been on the force?
10 years. Are you going to do this or not?
I mean, I'll do what you want me to do.
It's your choice.
I know.
Are you willing to do this or not?
What are you going to do if I say no? Are you going to arrest me?
I have no idea. I mean, I've already seen the bottle under your seat that you told me wasn't in there, that you were hiding when you were driving, which is tampering with physical evidence, which is a felony. So, go ahead and turn around for me. Just put your hands behind.
No, look, I'll do your test. I'll do your test. I'll do your test.
Get on the ground! Roll over right now. 11:35, start me a car, one fighting. Roll over on your stomach now! Now! Please. You're under arrest. Get on the ground! Put your hand behind your back right now.
I'm not struggling.
Put your hand behind your back. Put your hand behind your back.
Okay.
Put your hand behind your back.
You're holding my hand.
Roll on your stomach right now.
Okay.
So yes, at this point you are under arrest.
Yeah.
And I told you that before. Now you got resisting.
Oh my God.
Stay right there.
All right, I'm not doing anything. Oh, please.
11:35, start me a CO.
Tell me this is a dream. Tell me this is a dream. Oh, you bloody my nose.
Stay there.
I'm not going anywhere.
Quit leaning up.
You got blood. You bloodied my nose. Oh, God. Oh, God. Please save me. Save me. I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to sit on me.
Yes, I do. You haven't been compliant the whole time.
Please, you're hurting me.
Stay there.
Please, you're really hurting me. Oh, God, please, please, stop, stop!
Quit moving.
Stop resisting.
I'm not resisting, you're killing me.
He's already cuffed. He needs to go in a car.
Okay.
I'm already cuffed. Oh, please, stop this.
Okay.
Oh, please, stop.
Just relax.
Oh. God almighty.
Do not move until I tell you to.
Okay, I'm not. Oh my God.
You don't have a back seat, do you?
Can I stand up?
Nope.
Just sit tight, man.
I told you I'm doing. I'm not going anywhere. Why are you doing this to me?
Quit moving. He'll need to be checked out.
Right back.
Quit moving.
No, it hurts.
He just needs to go in a car.
What's that?
He needs to go in somebody's car. All right, roll over to my side. There you go. Put your feet under and you can sit up.
Officer Batson conducts sobriety tests on Mr. Miller and then asks him to submit to a breathalyzer test. When Mr. Miller does not immediately agree to take the test, Officer Batson orders him to turn around and put his hands behind his back. Mr. Miller tells him that he will take the breathalyzer, and Officer Batson grabs him by his shirt, throws him against the car, and then takes him to the ground. Officer Batson grabs and squeezes Mr. Miller's throat while he radios for backup, claiming that Mr. Miller is fighting him. A tow truck driver then arrives on the scene and assists Officer Batson in handcuffing Mr. Miller. Despite the fact the body camera footage shows no signs of resistance by Mr. Miller, Officer Batson pushes Mr. Miller onto his stomach and presses his forearm into his neck for nearly a minute until Officer Troy Best arrives and drops his knee onto Mr. Miller's neck. The officers continued to hold Mr. Miller down by using their hands and knees to press his neck for another minute. We will discuss the lawfulness of the force used later in this episode, but first, let's take a look at how Officer Batson and his supervisor at the Louisville Metro Police Department characterized his use of force against Mr. Miller. In the DUI investigative field notes completed by Officer Batson regarding Mr. Miller's arrest, Officer Batson wrote, quote, "When officer grabbed the offender's right wrist to place him under arrest, the offender pulled his arm away and began to turn towards his car. Officer grabbed the offender's shirt and led him to the side of the patrol car. Offender again pulled and attempted to spin away from the officer. Officer grabbed offender and performed a leg sweep to take the offender to the ground." He continued, quote, "Once on the ground, the offender continued to try and get away and would not give officer his hands. VIU 12, referring to the tow truck driver, was on scene and came to assist. An offender continued to resist being placed under arrest. Officer conducted both closed and empty open hand strikes as well as a pressure point technique to gain compliance. Officer and VIU 12 were finally able to get the offender onto his stomach and his hands behind his back to effect the arrest. Once placed in handcuffs, offender still continued trying to get up." Notably, the report omitted all uses of chokehold and neck restraints, while admitting to closed and empty open hand strikes and a so-called pressure point technique. Additionally, Officer Batson's superior, Sergeant Matthew Keller, also completed a use of force report regarding the incident. Sergeant Keller's report echoed Officer Batson's account, describing Mr. Miller as actively resisting throughout the encounter. According to the report, Mr. Miller, quote, "attempted to turn to the right and face Officer Batson, pushed away from the patrol car, and continued to, now quoting again, struggle and attempt to roll and push himself up from the ground." Sergeant Keller claimed that Batson's right hand, quote, "came to rest on the operator's collarbone throat area and held that position, quote, only long enough to call for backup on the radio and then immediately release the hold." He also noted that Officer Batson, now quoting again, utilized an empty hand strike to the operator's upper torso, head, and maintained control until backup arrived. Despite the lack of any violent or assaultive behavior by Mr. Miller, Sergeant Keller reported that the reason for using force in this encounter was quote-unquote active aggression, which LMPD Standard Operating Procedure 9.1 on use of force defines as, quote, "a threat or overt act of an assault through physical or verbal means, coupled with the present ability to carry out the threat or assault, which reasonably indicates that an assault or injury to any person is imminent." Officer Batson told his side of the story again on April 20th, 2020, when he was interviewed during a professional standards unit unit investigation into his use of force against Mr. Miller. During the interview, Officer Batson reiterated his claim that Mr. Miller resisted arrest, stating that, quote, "As soon as I grabbed his arm or grabbed his wrist, he immediately pulled away from me, began walking towards his car." He added that he, quote, "grabbed his shirt and just sort of escorted him to my car," and that Mr. Miller, quote unquote, "walked willingly before once again, allegedly, quote, pushed off the car, spun away, and started walking towards his car again, prompting a leg sweep." These claims are directly contradicted by body camera footage, which shows Mr. Miller being physically forced onto the cruiser and never attempting to walk away. Batson further alleged that while on the ground, Mr. Miller was, quote, "actively trying to push me off, roll away, sit up, definitely not complying with instructions." He described using, quote unquote, "pressure on his forehead and delivering strikes because Mr. Miller was, quote, trying to sit up, push me away, basically get away." Again, the footage does not support these claims, as Mr. Miller shows no sign of active resistance once on the ground. Batson also denied choking Mr. Miller, claiming instead that he placed his hand on, quote, "the top of his chest," and that, now quoting again, "my fingers were close to his neck." When pressed, he doubled down, saying that his hand was on, quote, "the top of his breastplate." Yet the footage clearly shows Batson's hand wrapped around Mr. Miller's neck.
Get on the ground! Roll over right now! 11:35, start me a car, one fighting. Roll over on your stomach now!
Finally, Batson claimed that Mr. Miller failed to comply with verbal orders, including a command to get on the ground, although it was issued after Miller was already down, and to, quote, "give up his hands," despite both of Miller's hands being physically restrained at the time. As you can see, nearly every aspect of Batson's testimony is undermined by the video evidence.
No. The second car. Ow! Oh, God, you're killing me! God almighty! Right, go and have a seat for me. Ow! Ow! DUI. Make sure you keep your camera on with him. So, we're good. Perfect. Just wait on EMS and we'll get him down to the book. Thank you. He's an attorney.
He's an attorney?
Yeah, my camera's on. Yeah. Can you write a tow slip? Yeah. So they can get that car and get out of here. Sergeant Keller should be on his way. Okay. Because we're going to have to do paperwork on him. Oh, yeah. So. All right. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to consult with an attorney prior to and during any questioning. If you choose to answer any questions or make any statements, you can stop at any time. Do you understand your rights? Yes. Okay, thank you. I just Mirandized him, so we're good, whatever he says now.
Beautiful, thank you.
So.
You good, man?
Yeah, I'm good. Okay. Yeah, we got to do an error on him.
Good.
He's bleeding, and well, he's being charged with resisting too, so.
Good.
He's an attorney, so.
Oh, great. So what the hell happened to you?
We ended up down there. He didn't want to go in cuffs.
Is the car being towed his, or is that something else?
That's his.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, man. Well, I'll hang here till Keller gets here.
Yeah. But yeah, we're going to have to do an error on him because he's got some cuts and everything on his face. And
Keller's going to handle that, though.
Closed hand strikes and all that, yeah.
Officer Batson states that an AIR, or AIR, or Administrative Incident Report, will need to be completed because he used force, including closed hand strikes on Mr. Miller, causing injury. According to the LMPD policy of use of force at the time, Standard Operating Procedure 9.1 reads, quote, "Should physical force be necessary in order to gain control of a situation, an officer shall use only that force which is reasonable to gain control of the subject. Once a person is restrained or under control, the use use of force is restricted to that which is reasonable to maintain control. Good judgment is extremely important in deciding which tactics to use and how much force to apply. The policy continues, quote, choking techniques, even if applied appropriately, may cause a risk of death or serious physical injury because they may restrict the flow of blood or oxygen to a person's brain. Choking techniques are not an approved force option and are prohibited, except in a situation where the use of deadly force would be allowed. Now, although the policy does not define what exactly constitutes a so-called choking technique, it does clearly state that use of deadly force is only authorized, quote, in defense of oneself or another when the officer reasonably believes, based on the facts and circumstances, that the person against whom the force is used poses an immediate threat of death or serious injury to the officer or to another person. Deadly force is also permitted to apprehend a felony suspect, quote, when it is reasonable to believe that the arrest is for a felony involving the use of or threatened use of physical force likely to cause death or serious physical injury, and it is likely that the person to be arrested will clearly endanger human life unless apprehended without delay. While applying these standards, it is likely that Officer Batson's act of grabbing Mr. Miller's throat violated the chokehold prohibition, and both Officer Batson's and Officer Best's continued pressure on Mr. Miller's throat and neck could also be considered a violation of this policy. Additionally, there is a strong argument that Officer Batson's initial use of force in throwing Mr. Miller to the ground was also disproportionate under the policy, as Mr. Miller did not appear to pose a physical threat to Officer Batson. Officer Batson made no attempts to de-escalate the situation, and Mr. Miller was not given sufficient time to comply with the arrest before Officer Batson initiated force. In addition to violating LMPD policy, it is likely that a court would find that Officer Batson's use of force was excessive under the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. As we have discussed before here on ATA, the Supreme Court held in the 1989 case of Graham versus Connor that claims of excessive force in the course of an arrest are analyzed under the Fourth Amendment's so-called objective reasonableness standard, identifying three factors to guide this inquiry: the severity of the crime at issue, whether the suspect poses an immediate threat to the safety of the officers or others, and whether he is actively resisting arrest or attempting to evade arrest by flight. In this instance, Mr. Miller was being arrested for a non-violent misdemeanor. There was no evidence that he posed a threat to anyone's safety, and at worst, his initial conduct could be characterized as passive resistance or non-compliance. But he did not appear to resist when the majority of the force was applied. Accordingly, it is likely that a court would conclude that the force used against Mr. Miller was unconstitutionally excessive. Sergeant Matthew Keller, whose use of force report we discussed earlier in this episode, arrives on the scene to investigate the use of force incident.
No, I'm gonna need my camera, so might as well get it. You okay?
He's being charged resisting, closed hand strikes to the head. He's got some cuts on his face.
Yeah.
He's an attorney.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he says he is anyway. I don't know him.
Yeah.
But anyway, I stopped him for speeding.
Okay.
He's hiding a beer bottle under the seat when I get up there.
Okay.
For some unknown reason, because it's bone dry and empty. He said he'd been drinking, did SFSTs, starts playing games on the PBT. You know, I'm like, finally just, okay, forget about it, you're under arrest. Go to cuff him, he pulls away.
All right.
Take him to the ground, and he's still just trying to not give me his hands, get up, stand up, roll over, you know, so.
Okay.
A couple, I think a knee to the body and a couple strikes to the head. But I think the cuts came from falling to the ground.
Yeah, falling on the ground.
Yeah,
Okay.
rocks down here.
All right, well, I'll get pictures of him, get pictures of you before it gets dark. I might snap a picture of the car. All right. I'll do the car first, I'll work my way back just in case they take off with the car. Let me do your hands. All right, the canine have to help you get him cuffed?
Yeah, he's already cuffed when I got here.
All right, gotcha. All right.
Yeah, you helped me.
Did it really?
Yeah, he came and sat on him and grabbed my cuffs.
Really? I need to get his information then. Thanks.
DOC.
Let me get him out and get him pictures.
What's that?
Let me get him out and get pictures of him. All right, would you like to go to the hospital or not?
I don't know. I'm an attorney. I'm not going anywhere. What?
Well, you should have got handcuffed the right way then.
Huh?
You should have got with the program and got a handcuff the right way then. If you're not going anywhere, you already resisted. So
You weren't here.
No, but I trust my officer. Especially when you're intoxicated and he's not. Have you ever been arrested?
No.
Have you ever been in handcuffs?
No.
Okay, well that's how they feel. Okay? It's not killing you.
Check this video.
We're gonna watch it.
See, I'm telling you.
Well, you're intoxicated.
Want to bet?
Huh?
Want to bet?
So you're not intoxicated? You haven't had anything to drink? That's what you're saying?
I didn't say I wasn't having something to drink.
Okay, well I didn't say you were drunk. I said you're intoxicated.
No.
I can tell you are. I smell it.
We'll see. We'll see.
So you haven't had anything to drink?
I didn't say that. Why
Okay.
did you say that?
You said you weren't under the influence. One drink is under the influence.
Really? Really? Where's it written at?
You're a lawyer, you tell me.
I know what the law is. Come on there, okay.
You feel a little better now?
Yes.
All right, good. Now, would you like to go to the hospital or not?
I don't think I need to go to the hospital.
You don't think you need to go to the hospital?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right, hang tight. Hang tight. All right, turn and face the police car, please. Thank you. All right, so other than your face, do you have any other complaints of pain?
Just my wrist.
Your wrist from the handcuffs or the wrist from what happened?
Handcuffs.
Handcuffs? Okay. All right, you sure you're okay? I mean, you okay? All right, hang in there, okay? Have a seat back in there for us, please. All right, I'm done talking to him.
At the jail, Mr. Miller took a breath test, which showed that he had a BAC of .064, below the legal limit of .08. He also agreed to take a blood test, which returned a BAC of .067. According to Mr. Miller, his injuries were also more serious than they originally appeared, and he could not walk for about 6 weeks due to a ruptured artery in his leg. Mr. Miller also had black eyes and bruises all over him after the encounter. Mr. Miller was charged with speeding, operating a motor vehicle under the influence, resisting arrest, and third-degree criminal mischief. On April 15, 2020, while the criminal charges against him were still pending, Mr. Miller filed a civil lawsuit in Kentucky State Court, which was removed to federal court on April 29th. On May 13, 2021, deadlines in the civil case were suspended pending a resolution of Mr. Miller's criminal charges, which remained active until February 1, 2023, when Mr. Miller pled guilty to speeding and all other charges were dismissed. Litigation then resumed in the civil case, and as of the date of writing this episode, Mr. Miller's lawsuit is still pending. As we discussed earlier in this episode, Sergeant Keller filed a use of force report on May 1, 2019. Sergeant Keller concluded that Officer Batson's use of force was justified, writing that, quote, "In my opinion, Officer Batson was justified in his action due to the need to gain control of the intoxicated operator quickly." Sergeant Keller then forwarded the report to Lieutenant Micah Shue for approval, who wrote, quote, "I concur with Sergeant Keller's assessment. It is important that any sign of physical aggression or resistance by a person be dealt with immediately," and went on to conclude that, now quoting again, "The wearable video clearly shows Mr. Miller was physically resistant to arrest, and Officer Batson's actions were necessary and appropriate. Officer Batson followed policies and procedures as well as clearly established law." On June 20th, 2019, then Chief of Police Steve Conrad ordered a professional standards investigation into the use of force against Mr. Miller. However, on November 6th, 2020, Officer Batson and Officer Best were exonerated of all suspected violations, and the complaints were dismissed without any disciplinary action being taken. On April 26th, 2021, the Department of Justice opened an investigation into the Louisville Metro Police Department in the wake of the 2020 shooting death of 26-year-old Breonna Taylor, who was fatally shot by LMPD officers during a botched late-night raid at her apartment executed under a no-knock warrant. On March 8th, 2023, the DOJ issued a report concluding that the LMPD was, quote, "engaged in a pattern or practice of conduct that deprives people of their rights under the Constitution and federal law," finding that the LMPD used excessive force, including unjustified neck restraints and the unreasonable use of of police dogs and tasers, conducted searches based on invalid warrants, unlawfully executed search warrants without knocking and announcing, among a litany of other allegations, including its response to allegations that LMPD officers engaged in sexual misconduct or domestic violence. Specifically, with regard to the use of force, the DOJ concluded that, quote, "We found that officers routinely use force disproportionate to the threat or resistance posed. Officers use force simply because people do not immediately follow their orders, even when those people are not physically resisting officers or posing a threat to anyone." The report also stated that, now quoting again, LMPD officers use neck restraints in circumstances where they are not justified. Neck restraints, applying pressure to the neck or throat in a way that inhibits air or blood flow, are inherently dangerous and have the potential to cause serious bodily injury or death. They are objectively unreasonable where a person is already restrained or poses no danger to others. Ultimately, the DOJ determined that, quote, "Our review shows that LMPD officers resort to neck restraints even against people who are not resisting, or people who have already been handcuffed or otherwise subdued. LMPD policy prohibits using neck restraints except in situations where deadly force would be allowed, but officers have repeatedly violated this prohibition without being held accountable by supervisors. In fact, in the vast majority of neck restraints that we identified in our sample, the neck restraint was not even reported as a use of force, nor analyzed by supervisors for its reasonableness." As an example of an unjustified neck restraint, the DOJ cited Mr. Miller's arrest. Their account sharply contradicted the officer's reports, stating that after Mr. Miller hesitated to take the breath test, now quoting from the report, the officer took hold of him and pushed him down onto the grass, where he appeared, quote-unquote, stunned as the officer yelled, quote, "Roll over." The DOJ reported that Officer Batson, quote, "grabbed and squeezed the man's throat," and later, after Mr. Miller was handcuffed and not resisting, quote, "pressed his forearm into the man's neck for nearly a minute, stopping only when another officer arrived and, quote, dropped his knee onto the man's neck." Despite Mr. Miller screaming, quote, "You're killing me, I'm already cuffed," officers continued to apply pressure to his neck. The DOJ concluded that, quote, "At no point were officers justified in using neck restraints," emphasizing that Mr. Miller posed no threat and was handcuffed for much of the encounter. They also noted the, quote, "deep and ongoing trauma Mr. Miller suffered as a result." The DOJ placed blame not just on individual officers, but on LMPD's entire system for reviewing use of force incidents, calling the investigations, quote, "perfunctory," and noting that supervisors, quote, "rarely make efforts to manage the officers on scene." Reports often, quote-unquote, "mischaracterize or omit facts that would undermine a finding of justified force, and typically lack any analysis of whether better tactics could have avoided the need for force altogether." In Mr. Miller's case, the DOJ found that Sergeant Keller, quote, "not only mischaracterized the chokehold, but also failed to identify the knee to the man's neck." The follow-up administrative investigation was equally flawed. One investigator admitted he conducted a, quote, "quick online search of a one-handed chokehold rather than applying LMPD's own use of force policy, and dismissed the incident because the officer's technique, quote, "did not resemble either of those found when doing a search." In total, the DOJ report included 36 recommended remedial measures, including enhanced use of force policies, reporting and review procedures, the creation and delivery of new use of force training, and enhanced force-related accountability mechanisms. On December 12, 2024, the DOJ announced that it had entered into a court-enforceable consent decree with the Louisville Metro government to resolve the issues identified in the report. The 259-page document, which was filed in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Kentucky, set out specific policies, trainings, and programs that the LMPD was required to implement, including revisions to the department's use of force policies, training, and incident review requirements, as well as misconduct review and disciplinary procedures. LMPD also revised its use of force policy on October 1st, 2024 to specifically define so-called chokehold and/or choking techniques, as well as so-called carotid vascular restraint. The policy now specifically states that, quote, "officers should avoid placing weight on a person's head or back for a period of time beyond that which is reasonable to gain and/or maintain control. Additionally, officers should avoid placing weight on a person's neck deck for a prolonged period due to the increased risk of injury as a result of air and/or blood flow restriction. Carotid vascular restraints are a use of physical force that are prohibited under the physical force policy. Likewise, the revised policy prohibits officers from allowing a restrained individual from remaining face down, as it may cause positional asphyxia, and it should be noted that the policy still only permits the use of chokeholds and choking techniques in situations where the use of deadly force would be allowed and reasonable. Overall, Officer Batson and the Louisville Metro Police Department get an F for using excessive and unnecessary force against a compliant citizen, utterly failing to employ any perceivable act of de-escalation, and for misrepresenting the events in a blatant effort to avoid accountability. Officer Batson's conduct during this stop was not just excessive, it was indefensible by any legal, ethical, or policy standard. The moment that Mr. Miller showed hesitation to take a breath test, Officer Batson chose force over communication. Rather than explain the consequences of refusal or offer Mr. Miller a meaningful opportunity to comply, Officer Batson escalated to physical violence almost immediately, ultimately dragging Mr. Miller to the ground and placing his hand around his throat. His use of force was not only wildly disproportionate, but also in direct violation of LMPD's own policy, which prohibits choking techniques outside of deadly force scenarios, none of which applied here. Batson's post-incident reporting was equally troubling. He misrepresented nearly every critical moment of the encounter, claiming that Mr. Miller walked away, resisted arrest, and attempted to sit up or push him off, all of which are categorically contradicted by the body camera footage. His insistence that his hand was on Mr. Miller's sternum or breastplate, when the footage clearly shows that it was wrapped around Mr. Miller's neck, suggests a deliberate attempt to avoid admitting the use of a prohibited tactic. But Officer Batson did not act in a vacuum. LMPD's supervisory chain also failed at every turn. Both Sergeant Keller and Lieutenant Chu reviewed the body camera footage and had no issues with Officer Batson's conduct, which is a testament to the corruption of the entire Louisville Metro Police Department. The Department of Justice's scathing findings only reinforce what was readily apparent in the body cam footage, which is that LMPD officers routinely used force without justification, fabricated reports to cover it up, and faced no meaningful oversight. According to the DOJ report, Mr. Miller's arrest was one of many that were subject to an institutional culture that enabled abuse and suppressed accountability at every level. The actions of Officer Batson and the other LMPD officers serve as a clinic for the total collapse of constitutional policing at every level. I highly encourage you to explore the DOJ's report for yourself, and you can find it linked in the description below. Now, as for Mr. Miller, I cannot rightfully assign a grade to an individual who was subjected to unjustified violence through no fault of their own. Although he was initially charged with DUI, resisting arrest, and criminal mischief, the only charge that he ultimately pled to was speeding. More importantly, none of the circumstances surrounding those charges justified the level of force that he was subjected to. The body cam footage shows a 64-year-old man who, at most, hesitated to take a breathalyzer and tried to ask questions during a confusing and rapidly escalating encounter. Once on the ground, Mr. Miller did not resist, did not lash out, and made no aggressive movements. The repeated use of neck pressure, especially while he was restrained and clearly in distress, cannot be pinned on any action that he took. If anything, his calm demeanor and lack of resistance underscores how unnecessary the use of force truly was. While individuals in police encounters are expected to comply with lawful orders, that expectation cannot be used to justify brutality or to excuse officers from their duty to de-escalate. Mr. Miller's conduct never came close to justifying what happened to him, and to suggest otherwise would be to shift blame onto the victim rather than hold accountable those who abused their authority. I commend Mr. Miller for managing to remain relatively calm in an extremely taxing situation and for following up this encounter with the proper legal action. I will be sure to keep you all updated on the status of his lawsuit in a future update episode. Let us know if there is an interaction or a legal topic that you would like us to discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to pick up your copy of the Civilian Rights Hand Guide in the links below.